Hello and welcome to PhDtalk. My name is Miriam and I'm the host in this podcast where I interview PhD students to let them talk about their topics and struggles and joys, and where me and others share tips with you to make your life as a PhD student more effective, less stressful, and most importantly, more fun. Welcome to today's episode. Today I'm speaking with Mary Kobia. Mary is a senior career consultant at the international office of the University of Copenhagen. And over the past few years, Mary has coached many professionals and witnessed firsthand how often they struggle with their impostor syndrome. In our conversation, she shares her own experience, her own imposter story. She explains what the imposter syndrome really is. And most importantly, she will share tips on how you can develop a better relationship with it. Since we all experience imposter feelings at some point, I hope that this episode gives you some inspiration and useful insights. And then let's talk science. Hi, Mary.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm very fine. The sun is shining and I'm in Denmark. You know, when the sun is shining, there are no problems.
Yeah, right. It's a good start in the week. Sunny Monday.
Yeah.
So we will talk about the imposter syndrome today. You will give some of your insights and some of your experience with working with it and people who have it.
Yeah.
And would you like to give us an introduction, like, to yourself? Like, how did you get to work with the imposter syndrome and what was your story before that?
Well, I have a very long story, but I will just keep it short. I've been working at the university for 9 years now. And at the university, I have a lot of different tasks. Currently, I'm working a lot with researchers. And then at the university, we have created a beautiful program to support the spouses of the researchers. And what I've been doing a lot the past 13 years actually is working with talent development, career development, coaching. I've been conducting a lot of one-to-ones with amazing internationals. And at the university, I've been conducting career workshops related to CV, cover letter, transferable skills. So basically what I've been doing many different things, but relevant to this is I've been doing a lot of career counseling related to spouses. A lot of our spouses are researchers. And one of the top two themes I see people having challenges with is the imposter syndrome. That's one thing.
Yeah.
And then number two, is very much related to transferable skills. Transferable skills are related to what can I've been working maybe in a bank sector, or I've been doing research, but now I don't want to be in academia. I want to pursue a career beyond academia. Yeah. What are my transferable skills? And then there's actually a last thing. This is very much related to culture and communication. So today it's maybe a bit of a deep dive into the imposter syndrome. Yeah. Very much related to amazing internationals, top talent, people who are like amazing researchers, beautiful brains. But when we look at how are these brains working in terms of talking about yourself, what I see a lot of people do is they have a very negative dialogue around themselves. Okay. And this is maybe related to the imposter syndrome.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Can you give us a definition of the imposter syndrome, since this will be the main topic?
I think there's so many definitions of what imposter syndrome is. Yeah. But for me, very, very simple. The imposter syndrome is a psychological pattern where individuals, they doubt their accomplishments. That means that they constantly feel they're fraud, they're going to be exposed, and they feel inadequate, and they believe they don't deserve their achievements.
Okay.
So if they have accomplished something, they think it's because of luck. Oh, I was lucky. Or it was external factors that made me, publish all these beautiful publications. So just to wrap up, the imposter syndrome is very much related to doubting yourself. There's a lot of fear of failure. A lot of people, they overwork to compensate for their imposter syndrome. What I also see a lot of people do, they have this picture of them being perfectionists. They strive to be 100%. And we all know no one can be 100%.
No, especially since 100%, my 100% are not your 100% and not anybody else's.
Exactly.
100%.
And I think, sometimes also if we look at our partners are not 100%. And if we look at ourselves, we're not 100%. No. So we cannot demand that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope it makes sense.
Yeah, I think it does to me. And then if someone has the imposter syndrome, what are the negative effects of it? And is there maybe also positive effects? But I guess we can start with the negative ones, probably most prominent.
I really like your question because sometimes when we think of imposter syndromes, we think, oh, everyone is perfect. No one has imposter syndrome, but everyone has it. The imposter syndrome is a universal emotion, like hate, like love, like anxiety. For me, it's all about how do you tackle your imposter syndrome? Because it's like we can be angry.
Yeah.
But how do we deal with our anger? And if we look at the imposter syndrome, it's very much related to what are your habits around the imposter syndrome. For me, it's about creating consciousness, awareness about, I have maybe an imposter syndrome. How does it manifest? So creating awareness about, when I'm under pressure, what characterizes my behavior? What characterizes my thoughts?
So figuring out when does my imposter start talking?
Exactly. And I think, I think this is a beautiful podcast and I would like to share and care my own story.
Please.
I've been doing a lot of communication work in my previous work where I was writing a lot of stuff. And one of my biggest challenges was being perfectionistic around writing an article. And I can remember there was once I had a very, very tough deadline. And that tough deadline almost, killed me, not physically, but mentally, because I found it so overwhelming. And then at the same time, I had to do a presentation. And then I can remember I was doing this beautiful, beautiful presentation. Everyone laughed, everything was beautiful. Yeah. If you had seen it from in a meta perspective, you would have thought this is very, very beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful start, beautiful pitch, beautiful middle, beautiful ending. And I can remember when I was done with that presentation based on the article, I was so, so tired. I was so, so overwhelmed. I felt like vomiting because if you have a picture analogy of a duck, the bird, the duck.
Yeah.
When it swims.
Yeah.
Under the water, the feet are moving like this.
Yeah.
But above water, it's still.
Yeah.
And then I can remember I had a colleague called Freddie. And then I told him Freddie. And Freddie praised me for my beautiful presentation. And then afterwards, I just had to be honest with him. And then I said to him, Freddie, I feel awful. I really, really feel awful. And I feel that it went horrible. And then he said to me, that is nonsense. Then we started talking about this imposter syndrome. And then he said to me, I think you're overthinking right now. It was actually him who used this analogy with a duck, And for me, that was like a defining moment because what I realized when I was doing the presentation, I was using so much energy, smiling, reading the audience, timing my pitch, now I'm going to do this. And then at the same time, I was doing an overthinking. So for me, it was so overwhelming. And then energy wise, I was so exhausted. So that was my defining moment where I decided, no, I don't want to do that again, ever again. And then I started working with my performance skills because I knew, when I have to perform, I have, like a flavor, a bad habit related to, I seek perfectionism. I read the audience too much. So if people are sitting with crossed arm, close body language, then I freak out in my mind. No. Then I started creating another narrative and I started thinking, the reason for why they have a close body language is because they're just in love with all the things I'm saying. They're just taking everything in and it's so beautiful, so big. So they need to digest it.
Yeah. They're so concentrated.
Yeah.
Focused.
So they're reframing. I started reframing. And one thing I think sometimes we're very fast at is judging, we judge other people very fast, but I think we judge ourselves even worse, So this is just to pinpoint. If we look at the imposter syndrome, maybe if you asked yourself, what characterizes me how does my imposter syndrome manifest? Do I become very pleasing? Do I become very perfectionistic? Do I start overthinking? Physically, do I stop breathing? How does that manifest? May I ask you, how does it manifest for you when you feel anxiety or when you think about the imposter syndrome?
Yeah, I think pleasing, definitely. Yeah.
Why pleasing?
I kind of have the feeling that pleasing protects me.
Yeah.
So I love more. I try to be the nice girl, kind of, when I'm unsure of what I'm saying. I've also gotten that feedback when I give presentations that I should maybe laugh less. And I don't realize that I laugh. But when I got it like mirrored, I realized, I laugh when I'm, when I'm, scared or when I'm presenting. So definitely that. And overthinking.
I think it's very interesting what you're saying with laughing and pleasing, because I see a lot of international researchers, and if we look maybe at gender, I see a lot of women, because I also conduct mock interviews with people. So I create an environment like we're going for the job interview, and you have to wear exactly the clothes you want to wear for the job interview. And right now I'm very kind. My voice is very calm. But then I create an environment where, I change my body language to be very, reserved, closed. And then I ask people to do their presentation. Normally, if you're going for a job interview, if it's industry, or you can be asked to do a scientific presentation of your work. What did you do? Achievements, things like that. And I can remember I had an amazing international who, this was a lady. And then when we had our normal talks, she was very calm, very, very calm, beautiful voice, very articulate and things like that. And then I said, now I'm going to go out of character. I'm not Mary now. Now I'm Bente Larsen. And Bente Larsen is senior researcher at this company. She has asked you to do a presentation. You have 5 minutes. So go for it. And then we did it very vivid. So she had her presentation, and then she was doing a PowerPoint. And what I did was interrupt. And I raised my voice to show power. And the candidate, when we were out of character, she had a beautiful voice. She was very articulate. What happened was her voice came down. Yeah. Her body language started closing. And, we had talked about, remember to have a strong stand where both your feet are on the floor. Please do not cross your legs as if you're going to the toilet. Slowly, she started crossing her legs. Her body language became closed and things like that. And then after 3 minutes, she said, Mary, can we stop? Then I said, I'm not Mary, I'm Bente Larsen. then I could see it was too much for her. Then I went out of character. And then she was shocked. She was overwhelmed by this experience. And I said to her, when I do this, it's out of kindness. I'm not saying this is going to happen to you. We are just creating an environment where I don't want you to be outer driven. I want you to be inner driven. I want you to be, consistent in your presentation. If it is Bente Larsen, you'll make a beautiful presentation. If it's Mary, it's a beautiful presentation. Then we started talking about what happens when I sit with my closed body language, and how can you not mirror that? What could you do to make Bente Larsen relax?
Yeah.
So this is very specific, because one thing I believe in, you cannot change a behavior if you're not aware that it's a negative behavior. Does it make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And sometimes I think we use too little time to assess ourselves in a constructive way, where it's related to, I want to be this person. In order for me to be this person, how can I work around the things that don't work for me right now? So if I'm a perfectionist, I please a lot. When I get nervous, I start talking too much. I go crazy. When someone has a closed body language, I get stressed. Oh, now I know about this. I can do something about it. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
And sometimes we have a tendency to overthink and make things very, very complicated. But sometimes we can just start with low-hanging fruits. Like when we have meetings, we could challenge ourselves. If we are like, oh, I have a meeting and I don't like saying something, we could have objectives that was like, let me just say 2 things today at the meeting. Check.
Okay.
Without even thinking about it and not evaluating, not doing anything. I just want to say 2 things today.
So like a self-training and also to get into the situation maybe in a more safe environment.
Exactly.
When it's a rather small meeting, I can look at myself, what happens if I say something.
Exactly.
And then when it's more important, well, all meetings are, but a more important meeting to me, then maybe I will know what will happen to me, and then I can react in a different way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think so. And before we started the podcast, I explained that the imposter syndrome, this is a universal thing. Like, if I asked you, what is 2 + 2? What is the answer to 2 + 2? 4. Oh, you're so smart. And that's because you've had mathematics in school. But if I asked you, could you please define what happiness is for you? Ooh, then it becomes really weird. What is good mental health for you? What is that, Mary?
Yeah, it's more abstract.
It's more abstract.
But does it have to be more abstract, or?
I don't think it has to be more abstract. My key message is, in school we are taught, mathematics, all these subjects. But in school we're not taught about how do we take care of ourselves? How do we have a beautiful life? What are emotions? What are positive emotions? Why do I have negative thoughts? What can I do with my negative thoughts? This is not something that is fundamental, and that is something you have to learn. And for me, mental health well-being is like a life skill. But this is something you figure out when you've gone to school, when you're maybe in university, when you have to perform, start realizing there's something wrong. Why am I feeling this way? And then you start thinking, I'm the only one in the entire world, in Denmark. And then you realize a lot of people have these emotions. And that's because we're not taught about it. Does it make sense?
Yeah. Like, I'm also thinking, are we actually like pushed towards the imposter syndrome direction? Because at school we are like, okay, if you don't have depends on the school system, but like an A or something, like the best grade. Yeah. Like if you don't have the best grade, then it's a lot about the mistakes that one did instead of the things that still went right. And then also maybe being taught to be humble and not to brag, which is of course also nice in a way, in a human community context. Yeah. But are we feeding the imposter syndrome in people, you think, or is it?
We're definitely not doing so much about it. I agree with that. And I think we live in a high performance environment. It's wonderful, but I think we have a focus a lot on the outer world, what is going on out there. But we don't have a focus on what's going on in ourselves. And I think there's some fundamental things like we have anger, we have rage, and then there's some emotions that are taboo. When we come to work, we don't say, hey, I feel like shit today. I had an argument with my husband and right now I freaking hate him. I want to divorce his sorry ass,
Yeah.
We don't do that,
No.
And sometimes I think we can be so overwhelmed with our own emotions, but sometimes our emotions is not even, how do you say, we are not our emotions. You can wake up in the morning and then you can feel really awful. And then you meet someone who has created a beautiful impact for other people and inspires you. And then suddenly it becomes a beautiful day,
Yeah.
Just because you started bad, it doesn't mean that you end bad. And I think a lot of people, when you have the imposter syndrome, it's very much related to you think it's going to be like this forever and ever. Life goes up, life goes down. Everything, it changes, Does it make sense?
Yeah.
I think what we can talk a bit about is, the flavors the imposter syndrome has.
Okay, so many people have different,
flavors. And it's like we're talking about, you can be a pleaser, very pleasing. You want to please. You can be very perfectionistic and things like that. Another thing I see a lot of people, they do is they compare themselves. Comparison,
Yeah, comparison.
How does that relate to you?
Yeah, I think doing a PhD, the comparison is like, when do other PhDs publish their first article? How do they advance? And it's also maybe a toxic comparison about how much people work, like just in terms of hours, or how they get along with their supervisors.
Yeah.
How do they perform in the group?
Yeah.
And these things.
So if we look at comparison, if I were to ask you, if you should not do that much, do it less, what could you do actively so you didn't focus so much on, comparing? What could you do actively?
Well, what I've tried to think is that we're just all very different. And what has helped me at least is to, and I'm still on the journey, but to think that my value doesn't depend on how many articles I publish.
Yeah.
And then I think when I compare myself, it's also not nice for other people because yes, sometimes I would be the one less well off, but sometimes it's of course the other person, and I don't actually want to degrade anyone.
Yeah.
So that has like shifting the perspectives.
Exactly. Because what you're doing right now is that you're realizing it's not just me who has it, everyone has this emotion, this feeling. And I think when we use a lot of energy on, comparing ourselves with others, we also lose focus, eye on the ball, we lose the eye, we're just all over the place.
Yeah. Where the focus goes, the energy flows.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I also think sometimes we can challenge ourselves. Like, we all know if you do something consistently, you become really good at it. So if I asked you, if you're very good overthinking and you've been doing that for years, then I bet you might be very good at overthinking. So if we had to change that, then we would have to replace the overthinking with something else.
Yeah.
What could that be?
Analytical thinking, strategic thinking. I don't know.
Yeah. I think when we overthink sometimes it has nothing to do with, how do you say, you can have a small problem, then you think of that small problem. Then we create a new problem. And then it's a new problem on top of a new problem. I think what kills overthinks or can reduce overthinking is having a positive, attitude to things, There are a lot of achievements we conduct, but we don't think about it. There are a lot of small things we take for granted, Now, the weather is amazing. In a couple of months, it's not going to be like this. And sometimes what we can try to do is get out of focus in terms of focusing on the overthinking. A very low-hanging fruit is just look around and say, okay, if I should just pinpoint 3 things that I've experienced so far this morning that were really, really nice.
Okay.
What would that be,
So just disrupting the thought, kind of cutting
disrupting.
the cord.
So if you think about, which 3 things did I experience on my way to the university today that were nice?
Yeah.
Do you have something specific you're thinking of?
I just love biking in the sun.
Yeah.
So every day it's a pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I sat in the courtyard looking at the trees, looking at the beautiful building we're in.
Yeah. When you did all of these things, were you overthinking at that moment?
No, I just thought of, this is nice.
This is nice.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we neglect all this beauty that is in front of us. Then we go to this place that has no energy. It's just overthinking. It's a crazy universe, but you are not that. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
And the thing is, a lot of the overthinking, it has nothing to do with the present time we're living in. When we overthink, we're overthinking about something that happened, and then when that negative thing has happened, then we project it to the future. It's nothing to do with now. There's no evidence that there's something wrong right now. Right now, I'm sitting here. I'm having a wonderful time with you. You're laughing. I don't see a problem right now. You understand?
Yeah, yeah.
The overthink is always related to a time aspect that was yesterday, or it has nothing to do with like now, because in the present moment, does it make sense?
Yeah, bringing me back to the moment.
Yeah. And I think if we should tame this thing around the imposter syndrome, I think talking and, getting things out of our head can help a lot,
Like writing things down also?
Writing things down, journaling. I have this expression called sharing is caring.
Yeah.
And I think we underestimate how many people feel the way we feel, When we are low, it's like, I don't want to share, I'm low. But when we are high, I got all these likes. I published, I did this. I was awesome. My PI said this. That's when we want to shine. That's when we want to share. But I think we can also create a culture where it's like, it's okay to not be high. It's okay to have a day where, things are just average.
Yeah. Or below average.
Below average.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So sharing the thoughts.
I think so. I think so. Yeah.
It was also a great relief when someone told me about the imposter syndrome, because I only heard of it for the first time doing my master's.
Yeah.
And the friend who told me about it, I was like, okay, interesting that there's like a concept behind this.
Yeah.
And I was so surprised when he told me that he had it, because to me, he was like one of the smartest people I know.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting experience, definitely for me.
Something happens with us when we start sharing our darkness, not only our, light side. And if we look at the imposter syndrome and we sort of have a meta perspective, we know, like, for instance, Michelle Obama, in her biography, she explains how she felt as, a fraud. And she explains how she, the imposter syndrome really affected her in her early days when she was studying, but also in the White House. We have the amazing painter, Van Gogh. He had a lot of demons in his head. He was depressed and things like that. But when he was alive, he never thought of himself as an artist or a painter. Imagine all the things he produced, everything was just going on in his head. So this is also why I think it's important that we do something about it. We talk about it, because I think what happens to a lot of us is that we go in our small worlds, then we think we are the only people having these sad emotions. And if we look at, what does if we can reduce our imposter syndrome, if we can, what is it we can do if we didn't have it? The thing is, it creates a lot of space for, where we are at peace, where we are in balance. When we are in peace and in balance, we have a lot of potential, because then there is no, there's no noise, Then we are very creative.
Yeah.
We can be very creative. And if we should be very, very specific, if we didn't have an imposter syndrome, we would be able to embrace challenges in a completely different way.
Yeah, we didn't have to like cross all the hurdles first, but we could get to the problem
exactly
kind of like right away.
So what I see a lot of researchers, when they start working with all of these things and they downtone their imposter syndrome, they look at challenges in a completely different way. Challenges can be related to your work, but it can also be to selling yourself in terms of, I'm on my way to, to get an assistant professorship, or I'm pursuing a career beyond academia. Because when I see people, they embrace the challenge, they change character in terms of they feel more empowered. So when I had a protein expert from India who had been seeking a job at Novozymes, and he had applied like 12 times. On the 13th time, that is when he actually landed this amazing job as a protein expert, but he never gave up. And when I met him, it was when he was about to, he didn't believe in himself anymore. He was like, Mary, I've applied. And then we worked around the job strategy. What can you do more of, do less of? And then I realized with him, his imposter syndrome was very much related to being a perfectionist, but very much related to, the fact that, if he didn't get this, then get into Novozymes, then he would never get a job. It had to be Novozymes.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I explained to him, 80% of what we do in our job search is related to mechanics. How do I write a CV? Which questions can I expect? But then the 20% is the psychology, the mindset. I've met people who are amazing, but the mindset, there's something wrong. Or not wrong, but they're not focused. But the thing is, when he started embracing the challenge, he became extremely focused. And then he went from, I don't really care if I get into Novozymes or not. Okay. I'm just going to do my best. And then he came with this beautiful energy where he just performed and he got his job. So to be specific, what happens to us when we reduce our imposter syndrome, I think something that is also very vital, we start recognizing our achievements. Because suddenly it's like, okay, I achieved this. I did it. And I believe I did it.
And I deserve it.
And I deserve it. Then we start acknowledging our achievements. Another thing we also start doing is we also take ownership of our success.
I know when you say that, I feel inner resistance, but yeah.
When we, how do you say, when we start taming our imposter syndrome, it's like, this thing that happened to me, this success, I freaking created it. Nobody gave it to me. I can see it resonates with you.
Yeah, but I know, like, I'm not there. Like, when you say that, I can feel that there is inner resistance in me and that I cannot fully acknowledge. Yeah.
And if I may ask, out of kindness, when you have this inner resistance, because I can see in your eyes something is happening, but if you should say the inner resistance, what is that about?
It would still tell me, yeah, that's true for other people, but not for me. And I know that that's not true.
Yeah.
But still, I'm like, yeah, but what I did is not like rocket science or something. Yeah. So it would still tell me those stories. Although I'm,
but that is absolutely fine. It's absolutely fine to have those thoughts. But right now you're opening up to, oh, maybe that's success. I actually created myself. You're not, how do you say, you're not resistant. You're not 100% resistant to what I'm saying. But when we start, having this imposter syndrome that we're downtoning, we have the taking ownership of our success. Another thing we start doing when we tame our imposter syndrome is that we start pursuing ambitions in a completely different way. Because suddenly it's like, okay, I'm not really afraid of this. If I want to travel, or if I want to go somewhere, I can do it. So this thing with, we dream of things we want to do, and then now we're not using so much energy on, how do you say, pulling ourselves down, but we come from this space of, how do you say, where we are calm, where we are in balance. And then suddenly we can see, oh, I have option A, I have option B. There's so many things I can do. And I think that is also something that is positive. And I think another thing, when we start downtoning the imposter syndrome, is we start also having focus on having better connections with people, and also maybe wanting to share, oh, I feel like this. This is who I am, Today I'm having a crazy day. I might not have a crazy day tomorrow, but today I'm having a crazy day, because when we have the imposter syndrome where, it really takes over, we don't really want to interact with people. We just isolate ourselves, and then we think everyone is perfect. And I think another thing we also try to do is we do more self-compassion, We want to take care of ourselves,
Yeah.
Does that resonate with you?
Yeah.
In which way? In which way does it resonate with you, the self-compassion?
Yeah, I have, one story actually came to my mind when you were talking about, where do we focus on? And then there is the story of the two wolves. I don't know if you know that. It's like a grandpa talking to their, grandchild. And then the grandpa is like, do you know that there is two wolves living in your heart? One is the greedy one, and the one that is hateful and angry. And the other one is love and happiness, and they fight. And then the grandchild is like, so who wins? And then he's like, well, the one you feed will win. Yeah. And I try to think of that. So the thoughts that I feed and that I allow myself to follow, or that I also allow myself to disrupt, I will get more of. Yeah. So that is one way I'm trying to be maybe more compassionate, if that makes sense.
Yes, that makes sense. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that also, I think I realized that I can also be more kind to other people, on the inside. Mostly, or especially on the inside. Yeah.
I think that is a beautiful analogy. I have another analogy in terms of, the thoughts we have about ourselves, the overthinking, the little voice in our head. And we all have this voice. It can talk beautiful stuff, and sometimes it can talk very negative stuff. Try to envision that this small voice you have is a neighbor, someone.
Yeah.
And try to envision that person that is in your head. That's, of course, yourself. Imagine if this friend that is in there talking about everything, bad about you, you had to live with that person.
They're not even paying rent.
In real life.
Yeah.
So when you get home, someone will knock on the door. It's that inner demon. Would you invite that person in?
Probably not.
You sure?
Yeah.
But that's how we treat ourselves, That's it's the bad friend, They don't pay rent.
Yeah.
They eat the last fruit in the fridge, And I think sometimes just talking about things, we can take the top of a very serious emotion by just talking about it, Then we feel less overwhelmed. Oh, it was not that bad, Then if we do it again, oh, it was not that bad. And I think all of these things are very much related to habits. Like your story with the wolf. Okay, what do I actively decide to do more of, less of? This is a decision we can make. Right now, we are, if we look at human beings, we are amazing, in terms of envisioning good stuff, but also bad stuff. But right now we could decide, oh, let's all feel sad, let's both feel sad. We could create an environment where it's like, I tell you something sad, and then you tell me something that is sad, and then we're like, oh, very, very sad, And we can do that in less than 1 minute.
Yeah.
But we could also do the opposite. Oh, you are talking about your 3 things you saw today. The beautiful building, the trees, Now we are here, the sun is shining, I like biking. And chemically in our bodies, we can feel it, It's very hard to smile and then be annoyed at the same time. Isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, very much related to the imposter syndrome and downtoning, it's also very much about looking, what is it I can actively do? Because if I had to ask you, who creates your happiness? Who creates your happiness right now?
Yeah, myself.
Yeah.
I mean, I can decide if other people can, to a certain extent, of course. I have the power to decide whether I want my emotions to change. I can laugh at your joke, or I can decide not to.
Yeah.
If I'm conscious about it, I guess. You can make me angry, but you can't make me angry if I don't allow you to make me angry, basically.
Exactly. And for me, these things, we're working with your emotions. It's a muscle exercise. Like if I told you, I want to, I want to have like better arms and, better over body. So I'm strong. Could you please do my push-ups? You're laughing. Sure.
Yeah. Next level AI.
Yeah. Why can't you do my push-ups? You look amazing. You could do it. It's ridiculous, Mary. What are you talking about? It's the same sometimes with this happiness. Can you please make me happy? And then you're sitting and looking at the outer world. Oh, can you make me feel good? No, I can't do your push-ups, for God's sake. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
And sometimes we underestimate our own powers. And I think when it comes to the imposter syndrome, there's a lot of, there's an enemy, there's an enemy. They'll figure out I'm not good enough. Oh, the enemy is out there. In my experience working with a lot of people, the enemy or the barriers, they're never out there. It's always inside ourselves, It resonates?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. And then is there how can we know that we are not like faking being humble is like something nice. So how can we know that the inner voice is not like tricking us into thinking, we're just humble, but actually we're having the imposter syndrome? Do you think that is something that can happen, kind of? Or?
But it's okay to be humble.
Yeah.
Because for me, humbleness is not a negative thing.
No.
For me, the imposter syndrome is very much related to, I have negative thoughts about myself. I have self-doubt. I have all of these things. But being humble is more related to, you can have a lot of positive thoughts around something you're going to do, but you're just doing it gracefully, And I think a lot of people, they mistake humbleness with imposter syndrome, or humbleness with making yourself small. But for me, humbleness is not a negative emotion.
No, for me neither. But I think that maybe that humbleness can turn into something that is actually not healthy. Like Absolutely. It looks like humbleness to me, but it's not.
Absolutely.
Actually.
But I think what you're talking about is you can take an attribute and then it can be turned to something that is not of value. And then you like we were talking about, what is your flavor of, the flavor that characterizes your imposter syndrome? You can be very perfectionistic. You can be overthinking, but then you can also have humbleness as, the thing you lean up against, being too humble in a negative way.
Yeah.
And I think we all have different things we use as a crutch, where when we walk, we lean towards that, but it doesn't add value, So this is very much related to, it's okay to be humble, but if you're humble in a way that is not making you feel good, then it becomes like a coping strategy. I do this when I'm not feeling good, then I cope and then I use it as a cover. So we all have different things that we use as coping strategies.
When I have the feeling that some of my colleagues has the imposter syndrome, do you think it's wise to address that, or do you think that's a bit too much?
I like that question. I'm just visualizing you saying to a colleague, "Hello, I just want to let you know that you have a huge imposter syndrome."
I think I would frame it slightly different. But maybe you think it could help them? No, you're laughing so much. You don't think it's a good idea.
No, I'm just there's so many ways of saying it.
Yeah.
And I think if you have to address these things, you have to come from a place of kindness, where it's more related to, if it's related to imposter syndrome and you have a person that is constantly pulling themselves down, overthinking and things like that, then I think it's important to dialogue, say, well, I've noticed you say this, you say that, and da. And I'm just thinking, when you say all of these things, it doesn't resonate with your with who you are, because that's not the way I see it. And then get that person to, elaborate. When you say these things, where's the evidence? Where's the evidence for, you're not good enough because you've just published like 10 articles, What's that about,
Do you think it's possible to also help somebody else to pull them out of this? Or is it really like it has to come from the inside and there is no way anyone else can?
I think it's possible, but I think also it's a very delicate matter. Yeah.
Yes.
And just to be specific, I was thinking of a colleague I had a couple of years ago who had a tendency to talk very bad about herself. And then I can remember I just said to her, do you know what? Everything you're saying, I know it's in your head. And I just want to let you know, what impact it has, because what you're saying right now, if I look at your current work, and she was doing brilliant work, I said to her, it has nothing to do with your current work. So everything you're doing right now is going on in your head. And I had a very good relationship with her, so I could just be upfront.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And then I said to her, if you continue this behavior or this thing, how do you think it's going to impact your career? How does it impact you at home? What is it you want to do? And then she explained to me that, it was really, really hard for her. And a lot of this was a pattern. Sometimes we do things, but we've never thought why we do it. And once we realize, oh, why am I doing this? Then it becomes something else. There's so many things we do which are bad habits, but we don't question our bad habits. And sometimes people, they have to, stir us a bit up and ask us, why is it you're doing this? What is it you get out of it? What do you benefit from it? There's so many things we do without thinking about it, because it's we're wired, or we think, oh, now we're in academia, we have to be so critical, we have to be so academic, all of these things, And when it comes to, I see a lot of researchers applying their research methods in terms of being very analytical, looking at a problem from very different angles. You can have a problem, then you can think like this, and you can overthink like this. Then they take all these methods, which are problem-solving methods, amazing problem-solving methods. Then they apply them on themselves. Then they start analyzing, dissecting. Like if you have an atom, then you start, just breaking everything up. It's beautiful in the lab, but it doesn't feel good when you start breaking yourself up. And I think, again, this is very much related to, no one has taught us, please do not use your academic analytical skills on yourself, because that is a disconstruct which is going to not make you feel good, because you're seeking for perfectionistic, you're seeking for loopholes, you're seeking for problems, how can you make things better in your research? But when it comes to yourself, you can't do that. You can't apply those methods. So this is very much a mindset thing. But nobody explains this to us. Nobody explains, oh, Mary, I think it's really important, instead of using, just take 20 minutes a day just to think about something positive, do something positive. Do that. It can be 5 minutes, it can be 10 minutes, but it's something that is consistent. You need to create a new habit. Okay, when I bike from A to B, I want to be aware and conscious of 3 things I will pass on my way. This is something I start practicing. When I'm having meetings, I will focus on 3 positive things that happens at the meeting. So it becomes a new habit. But most of us, when we are biking, it's like we're thinking, oh, I'm going to work. Then I have this problem.
Red traffic light.
Red traffic light. And then at the meeting, oh, why is this person looking at me like this? And oh, why is the agenda so, why is this person not even prepared? Oh, then you go up and then you open your inbox. Oh, then, and then when you come home, nobody has made the food. There's no milk. And then you go to bed. And then you go like, oh, I'm going to have the same exactly day tomorrow. And then you do the new loop. Oh, red traffic light.
Yeah, right. And the imposter syndrome, of course, doesn't stop when we leave the office. We can also have an imposter syndrome about being a partner or being a friend or being like just in private.
Absolutely.
Private circles. I mean, it's not only academic or professional, right?
Absolutely. And I think if we should just recap and just, say something, ways to, to a strategy or something you can do very, very actively, a very, very low hanging fruit. For me, it's very much related to, for example, celebrating achievements. I hear a lot of people say, but when do I know if it's an achievement?
Oh, wow.
But an achievement could be, imagine I woke up this morning, I'm healthy, I'm fine. I bet there's some people that didn't wake up this morning. Yeah. Yesterday was their last, day. An achievement could be, imagine I got from A to B in a beautiful way. I saw all of these things. Achievement could be related to, my colleague actually said something really cool to me. Or an achievement could be, my PI thinks that what I'm doing is currently really good. Or maybe my PI doesn't like it, but I like it. Who cares? Who cares? Who freaking cares? I'm about to wrap up my whatever thesis and I'm getting out of academia and I know exactly what I'm doing, I'm just, creating a bit fun around it. So this thing around celebrating achievements. Another thing is also sharing your feelings. Who have you shared your feelings with today? Now I sound very Oprah Winfrey, but sharing your feelings, not to just everyone, but to someone where you're thinking, okay, this could benefit me or the person, And then last but not least, I think, practicing self-compassion, being kind to yourself. This is very much related to what is going on in our inner universe. And the funny thing is, if we are happy with ourselves, we can do anything, Then we don't need anyone to make us happy,
Yeah, right. And that can also be a gift to anyone else. Like, I don't push the responsibility of my happiness on somebody else. Yeah. And that's impossible to achieve.
And all this comes back to, who is it that makes you happy right now? There's so many things we create ourselves. And then we want other people to give it to us. Yeah. But we have it. We already have it.
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
Yeah. Definitely.
So I think all of this we're talking about is creating awareness and consciousness about, what are my emotions? And sometimes when we think about something, just because it's a thought, it's not true, It's like, I get this question sometimes. So Mary, are you always happy or what? Because you look so happy. Aren't you, like sad sometimes, or don't you have negative thoughts about whatever? Then I say, I have a lot of negative thoughts, but it's my habits around the negative thoughts. Like you can have a negative thought and then it's like a river. It's just passing, Everyone has it.
Yeah, right. And then also thanking the imposter sometimes maybe for pushing us.
Yeah.
Like I think that I went on and on and on is also a bit part due to my imposter, because I thought if I have a bachelor's degree, then everyone will think I'm smart. Maybe a bachelor's is not enough. Maybe if I have a master's degree, everyone will think I'm smart. Maybe it's not enough. Maybe I have to do a PhD. It's not only that, but it's definitely part of it. So, yeah.
I like that, because I think all these darknesses we have, there's also a beauty in the darkness because they push us.
Yeah.
But I think when it comes to imposter syndrome, when we are pushed, we're not always enjoying the process, the journey. We have a focus on the target, but not the journey. And I think we need to slow down and, enjoy the journey also.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Is there anything else that you would like to
I just
share?
want to thank you for coming to the University of Copenhagen, and thank you for taking this topic up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure.
And I think it's a very interesting topic. And hope it's useful.
I'm sure it is. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and your time.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. I actually recorded this interview just a few days before my PhD defense. And during this time, my imposture was louder than ever. And thinking back to this discussion with Mary really helped me put things into perspective. And I hope it does the same for you. And if you found this episode valuable, if you found it helpful, then please leave a comment and consider subscribing to the podcast on YouTube, Apple, or Spotify. And if you know someone who might also benefit from this episode and conversation, then feel free to share it with them. And then, thanks a lot for listening, your attention, and then I'm looking forward to welcoming you here again next time, and I wish you all the best. Bye bye, yours, Miriam.